With Kyrie Irving requesting a trade from the Nets, the NBA's turned their heads towards Brooklyn and wondering whether not just Kyrie, but also Kevin Durant could be available for a trade ahead of this year's deadline. Now, the Raptors were linked to Kevin Durant all of this summer, and a report from Yahoo Sports has sort of rekindled the chatter between Kevin Durant and the Toronto Raptors. So we'll discuss that, as well as the Toronto Raptors getting a big W against the Houston Rockets last night. It was an ugly win, but there was a strong performance for a couple of our guys, and I want to throw some respect onto Fred VanVleet's name. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. The first thing we're taking a look at is Durant to the Raptors rumors are returning. A little bit of, alliteration there, but Kevin Durant obviously was linked to the Toronto Raptors this entire offseason. For people that weren't watching the channel, we had the quest for KD going, hoping to trade anything but Scotty Barnes and obviously Pascal Siakam to acquire the Brooklyn Nets superstar. But again, the fences were kind of mended, they were patched together, and especially after Steve Nash ended up getting fired a couple months into the season, the Nets have actually had a solid year this year. They're fourth in the Eastern Conference, they've been getting wins, and they've been able to maintain the ship a little bit with Kevin Durant going down with a mid-season injury. He should be able to return soon in the coming weeks. So Kevin Durant, things were mended on that front, and things seem to be happy-go-lucky for the Brooklyn Nets going ahead this season. But as we covered yesterday a little bit on this channel, a bunch on Courtside Digest, Kyrie Irving shocked the world as he usually does, coming out and requesting a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. And this was kind of out of nowhere, and basically the gist of it, you can have the full breakdown over Courtside Digest, but they couldn't come to a contractual agreement. The Nets wanted to add a contract stipulation that if they won the championship, then he'd get the full contract that he wanted, or else it would be unguaranteed money in terms of this deal. Kyrie was not happy about it, and apparently they have principal differences, Kyrie and the Brooklyn Nets organization. So now at this point, he wouldn't even accept a full maximum extension from Brooklyn, but he said he will honor his contract and play out the rest of the season if he isn't dealt, but he is demanding a trade away from the Brooklyn Nets. So lots of stuff to break down there. There's a whole lot of pieces moving on. You can check out those videos on Courtside Digest, but Kyrie has requested a trade, and initially when this happened, a lot of Raptors fans were wondering, hey, is the quest for Kevin Durant back? Could we potentially be on the move? A lot of our star players, things aren't going that well for the Raptors right now. He has 3 years left on his deal. Could the Raptors make a move? But that was shot down by a lot of Raptors fans, but it's been sort of rekindled now by Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports, basically saying this, that he reported that the discussion on what will happen with superstar Brooklyn Nets Kevin Durant and his teammate Kyrie Irving after he requested a trade this Friday. Could Irving's demand lead to Durant be next? That's certainly a question for any team looking to go big game hunting ahead of the deadline. For a month, sources have told Yahoo Sports the Toronto Raptors have told rival teams that they will wait until the final hours before deciding whether or not to become buyers or sellers in this year's trade market. Why would Masai Ujiri's front office part ways with OG Anunoby or Fred VanVleet if an MVP candidate with 3+ seasons left on his contract were to become available? So that's coming from Jake Fisher. Obviously, people like to roast Jake Fisher because he is an NBA insider, but he reports on more rumor-ish stuff rather than what Woj and Sham sort of reveal, the hard facts and all that. But it sort of rekindled a lot of the talk about Kevin Durant potentially coming north of the border to Toronto. And personally, while again, the KD chatter's fun, it's cool to speculate on and stuff, I don't think it's going to happen given how the Toronto Raptors season has gone along. I mean, you look at Kevin Durant's stats this season, they've been absolutely remarkable. 30 points per game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, but he is 33, 34 years old. He's getting up there in age. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, and the Toronto Raptors would have to give up a lot of assets to acquire Kevin Durant. Now, if we could insert Kevin Durant into this roster and then maybe go all in and acquire a center, acquire a few more players, right? Just insert them into the team and then figure out the assets around Durant. Otherwise, then yes, there's no doubt about it. Masai Ujiri would be all over this. But the Toronto Raptors so far this season have proven they aren't even really like a Kevin Durant away from being a championship contender, a team that's worth mortgaging their entire future to acquire Kevin Durant. They just aren't at that level just yet. So Jake Fisher saying, hey, it makes sense that if Kevin Durant's available, why would they part ways with some of their key guys, and I'm sort of in disagreement with this. I don't agree with Fisher's report. I think if the Toronto Raptors are going to make their decision, I think their decision is already made, but they're probably holding out. We're 5 days away from the trade deadline right now. We're holding out to get the leverage, in order to hopefully get the best offer for some of our top players. But if the Raptors were trying to win now, I don't think we're going to make a future mortgaging move, just given how poor this season has gone so far for the Raptors at this point. So while it's fun to speculate on acquiring Kevin Durant, and if we could get him for cheap, without having to include a Scotty Barnes, without having to include 5 future first-round picks or whatever the asking price would be, then sure, it'd be cool to happen, but I don't imagine the Brooklyn Nets are going to budge from their asking price that they had this summer. But let me know if you guys disagree with that on that front. And I've seen a lot of chatter, especially when Kyrie requested a trade, that people saying that, hey, we should go out and acquire Kyrie Irving. I'll speak on this for 5 seconds. No, we shouldn't. He's too unpredictable. He wants too much money. And if Kevin Durant's not a needle mover for the Toronto Raptors in terms of being a contender, even though I think we might be a contender, but maybe not in championship consideration, just depending how you define contender, right? Kyrie Irving certainly is not that guy. Even though he's been good this season, yes, I don't want to bash people saying that Kyrie would be a cool fit. 27 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. You can't deny the numbers, but the unpredictability, the injury history, and he's also a free agent as well, so I don't think the Toronto Raptors should go after Kyrie Irving either. So that's my little spiel on Kyrie Irving for the people that are asking to pick him up. But, if you are interested in betting on these things, I'm sure there will be a little prop bet going on with all the Kyrie Irving drama going on. But definitely check out the Cool Bet Sportsbook. They're a sportsbook. They're regulated in Ontario. They're available all across Canada. And you bet on every single Toronto Raptors game, NBA game, or really any sporting event in general. They have some LeBron James bets regarding him. His passing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the all-time most scoring player in the NBA. And, you bet on pretty anything you want. And I've made a few predictions myself on this channel. I booked a few things on this podcast. And one of my takes that I'm throwing in, given how far the season has gone along, and the betting odds, it looked almost like a sure thing a few days ago, but I'm just locking it in. Unfortunately, I'm adding a prediction to my current predictions for this season, but I'm predicting that OG Anunoby will unfortunately be dealt. I don't want to see it happen, but I got to make a few of these predictions, and I don't think Siakam or Fred still will be on the move, but I think OG will eventually be dealt in the next 5 days. So it's unfortunate stuff, but that's just where my brain is going. My heart's telling me no. My brain is unfortunately telling me yes. But I want to hear your guys' predictions for the trade deadline. I might get a few live streams going, hear your guys' opinions in the next few days, just to see what the community is feeling about the trade deadline. But that's not the only topic we're discussing in this video. The next thing we're taking a look at is the reaction to the Raptors getting a win over the Houston Rockets. Now, I won't dive into this too much because the Raptors games, they've been brutal, right? And unfortunately, the games have been a little bit too late for me to have our Raptors therapy sessions. But last night, even though we got the win, right, therapy I think is still needed for Toronto Raptors fans. Because, yes, we got the W, but it was against one of the league's probably the worst team in the NBA so far this season. Arguments probably between them or the Hornets. And we didn't get that much production outside of our starting unit. We also had a brutal start to this game. It was pretty ugly. But if you look at the box score for the Toronto Raptors, we had big performances, especially from Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., two of those guys really showed out, got some buckets there for the Toronto Raptors. I'll talk about Fred more in the next segment. Scotty Barnes did his thing, 13 points, 4 assists, 6 rebounds, 4-11 from the field. No one really looked that engaged in this game, right? The defense really wasn't there, but the Rockets are just so bad, right? They're just such a bad team. The Raptors were able to edge this one out. Just looking at the box score, Precious Achiuwa did his thing in the starting lineup again. 2 of 7 from the field. Even though Koloko had 0 points in this game, I thought he did have a positive impact in when Precious Achiuwa was out dealing with foul trouble. But Koloko had 2 blocks, 2 steals, 2 assists, 7 rebounds. Did a decent job on Şengün, who's been the one bright spot for the Houston Rockets this season. Siakam, again, just an average Siakam performance on the year. And, with the exception of Chris Boucher, no production otherwise from Juancho, from Malachi Flynn, from Delano Banton. Delano did not look good in his couple 2 minutes. He was out there on the court. But I think Josh Lundberg put this game best, essentially saying that's got to be one of the least inspiring wins in Raptors history. Barely broke a sweat, which says more about their competition than it does about them. They're 3-3 on their 7-game road trip, which comes to an end in Memphis on Sunday. So from the last place Rockets to the second place Grizzlies. So nothing crazy to take away from this game. Again, the Raptors went on their runs. It didn't look like they were playing well, but the Rockets just are that bad of a team. They didn't even have Kevin Porter Jr. or Jalen Green. So not the best performance of this one. The Raptors without OG Anunoby. We'll see what ends up happening. But the one thing I want to end off this podcast with is on Fred VanVleet. Because without Fred, we probably lose that game to the Rockets last night. And Gary Trent Jr. also is really good. I don't want to overshadow Gary Trent Jr.'s performance in this one, but Fred VanVleet, as of late, Josh Lewinberg puts it, his last 10 games is averaging 27 points per game, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and shooting 47% from the field and 41% from the three-point line. Like, I get the Fred VanVleet haters. I get the people saying he's chucking shots, and I will align with the Fred VanVleet haters in saying that his defense has definitely regressed this season. But, like, you can't. And giving him a max contract is one thing, right? You can debate that till the moon's out. But calling this guy utter garbage, calling him trash and stuff. I see Josh Lewinberg also getting a lot of hate for backing Fred VanVleet as well. But people gotta chill on the Fred VanVleet hate wagon. He has been really good as of late, especially on the offensive end. He's not being as much of a ball hog as some of the Twitter trolls. Some of the trolls in I want to call our community trolls. I get this season's frustrating, but I'm back and forth. I'm back in my, what people are calling him, my boyfriend, Fred VanVleet. But, Fred VanVleet has been good. I will stand by this. He has been good as of late. And, sure, he might get dealt. Sure, he might. We might, if he wants the max contract, I can see Masai Ujiri making the decision not to give him that money, but he is a leader for the Toronto Raptors team. Blake Murphy put it pretty solidly that the Raptors, I guess they did fall apart after all, but especially early in the season, Fred VanVleet was keeping this locker room together. But, I don't know. Like, look at those stats. 27, 5, and 8. Right? He's been solid. Decent efficiency as well. Put some respect on Fred VanVleet's name. I just wanted to end the podcast with that. But folks, you guys are best for making this far. Definitely check out the Cool Bet Sportsbook. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with everything surrounding the Toronto Raptors. Anyways, it's enough of me rambling. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.